Egypt in a very, very high risk of a coup, without doubt. Netanyahu is trying to fight all these wars. So Sisi right now in a very precarious position. Americans basically are smarter than the Israelis. And at the end of the day, the Egyptian regime since 1952 with Abdel Nasser is an American agent. Because see, when you have constant wars and tension, there's no progress. The Egyptians have some of the most highest Islamic sentiment across everybody. So you need to understand that is very scary for Sisi.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to 2025. Today on i3 Pulse, Trump unleashes a scathing attack on Netanyahu. Is this his final warning? Is Egypt preparing for a conflict with Israel, or is Sisi next to fall after Assad? As the West Bank burns, is Netanyahu turning it into another Gaza? And finally, with Hezbollah hinting at major moves, what does 2025 hold for the region at large? Today at i3 Pulse. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh, I want to show you something interesting. We know the statements that Trump has been making, threatening all hell will break loose if the hostages aren't released. And recently on Truth Social, his social media app, he actually shared a pretty interesting video by Jeffrey Sachs. So I want to get your thoughts on this.
All the time, they had to figure out how to sell the war to the American people, how to scare the shit out of the American people. It was a phony war. Where did that war come from? You know what? It's quite surprising. That war came from Netanyahu, actually. You know that? It's weird. And the way it is that Netanyahu had from 1995 onward the theory that the only way we're going to get rid of Hamas and Hezbollah is by toppling the governments that support them. That's Iraq, Syria, and Iran. And the guy's nothing if not obsessive. And he's still trying to get us to fight Iran this day, this week. He's a deep, dark son of a sorry to tell you.
So what do you think about that clip? Because he's talking about the Iraq war at the beginning and then goes into Iran, all the other countries.
I mean, like, to be honest, basically, Jeffrey Sachs, like, well, why would Trump in his official Twitter or whatever social media account he has pushes this message? This message is to alarm the U.S. people. Alarm them that, you know, this person is engulfing or pushing or pulling the United States into more danger, more issues, and so forth. That's number one. Number two, it's a clear message to Netanyahu. Anybody who understands how politics works, like, this guy is sending a very hard message to the dude, and Trump already threatened him more than one time, right? There was multiple times and we spoke about it in one of the episodes that, you know, charged at Hamas, and one of the journalists asked one of his advisors, and he said, no, this is also for Netanyahu too at the same time. So the block for negotiation, the block to free the hostages is Netanyahu, not anybody else. Hamas wants to do I mean, from the beginning, Hamas basically wanted to take hostages to free the Palestinian prisoners. That's what they wanted to do from day one. Like, on October 8th, Hamas would have basically gave all the hostages back if Israel would have basically gave all the hostages that they have. So the Hamas side, they're always willing to do negotiations. And for God's sake, Gaza was destroyed and dismantled into small pieces. I'm pretty sure many basically might think that the October 7th was a big mistake from the Palestinian side of the story. So you know, they're willing to negotiate any day. The block is Netanyahu. Netanyahu wants Gaza to be ethnically cleansed. Netanyahu does not want a Palestinian state and two-state solution. Netanyahu wants to perpetuate the war to save his political career, or not political career, is his own personal security, not to go to jail and get in trouble. Netanyahu wants to destroy Hezbollah, destroy Iran, destroy. It's just so the Americans are not dumb. The Americans basically are smarter than the Israelis, and they are in control, and they are. But at the end of the day, the conflict here is that the United States does not want to push Israel in any way or shape that jeopardizes the existence of the state, which is why they're very gentle about how they push Netanyahu. And Netanyahu knows that. And also, I mean, before the elections, there's lots of pressure from the lobby because of elections. So, you know, so that's really it, basically. But this is a clear message to Netanyahu that if you do not get this done, especially before Trump comes into the office, if Trump is saying, if I come to office, I'm going to deal with you in a different way.
Which is, to be frank, I almost fell off my chair when I saw this posted by Donald Trump. I actually had to go back and confirm this was not just made up, because a president-elect of the United States calling Netanyahu out like that is something pretty astonishing. Speaking of Netanyahu and looking for war, There are reports from Israeli media sources that are alerting to a potential military confrontation between Egypt and Israel. And they're claiming that Egypt's been increasing its military presence in the Sinai Peninsula.
Yeah.
And for the viewers' context, 1979 agreement was that they had to demilitarize the Sinai Peninsula.
Yeah.
So the question here is, does this mean a war between Israel and Egypt? Is Egypt now in the game?
Yeah, I saw this news and I searched for it. I only found it in the Jewish newspapers or news outlets. More or less, it's more of a propaganda by the Israelis and not really something for real. I mean, we couldn't verify it anywhere else. The only people that spoke about it was the Israeli newspapers. Okay, what does that mean? That means basically one of three things. You do that basically for three reasons. Either you're doing it for public consumption, meaning the Israelis are trying to, somehow give a specific signal to their own people. In this case, they're trying to create some fear mongering that, the Egyptians are coming and so forth, and we need to secure the land and the homeland, and that will give Netanyahu a little bit more leeway to be aggressive and so forth. That's number one. I'm not saying this is it, but this is one of the possibilities, or even in general, when a country does that, there's some of these, specifically in the Israeli case. The second one is trying to push the Egyptians, trying to put pressure on the Egyptians, trying to accuse them that you're trying to fight us, you're trying to break the peace treaty, you're trying to whatever. That's going to put pressure on the Egyptian government. And that could basically be a preparation for war in certain cases. I don't think in this case, definitely, but I'm just saying in general. The third reason in this case is the exact opposite. That the Egyptian government feels it's not safe anymore from internal conflict or internal either civil unrest or a weakness within the military hierarchy. That the Sisi is actually scared of a coup d'etat from within the middle ranks of the army. Okay? And what does that do? Because the Sisi and the Israelis are fully in sync, right? Everybody knows that, right? So the Israelis would be helping the Egyptian government by, trying to say, oh, look, the military, the Egyptian military is preparing for war against Israel and stuff like that. That would basically put a little bit more trust in the Egyptian officers that Egypt is working hard to save Palestine. We're doing our best. We're breaking even the Camp David Accord and the peace treaty we've done with Israel. We don't care. We want to protect the Palestinians. So that would again delude some people, or at least now the main point that this might show, and this is maybe the only explanation I have right now. It's just a possibility. I'm not saying this is most likely or less likely, but this is the only thing that I can think of within this specific propaganda incident, is that I think Sisi is under a hell lot of pressure, especially the Gaza thing has been going on for over a year. Why did this happen now after a year and 3 months? Right after what happened in Syria. The only thing that just happened just right now, a couple of weeks ago, before this news came about, is the success of the Syrian revolution, where the Egyptians started imitating. They have a very popular hashtag in Arabic. The translation from Arabic is like, "You are next, Mr. Dictator." You see what I'm saying? And they're speaking to Sisi. And there were a few little rallies or quick, basically, rallies against Sisi, calling for Sisi to be deposed again. You see what I'm saying? It was the same basic sloganeering at the time of the early Arab Spring in Egypt. So you need to understand that is very scary for Sisi. And the Egyptian people are has very strong Islamic sentiment. Like the Egyptian people, if you even compare them to the Arab world in general, and even the Muslim world in general, the wider Muslim world and the wider Arab world, the Egyptians have some of the most highest Islamic sentiment across everybody. And probably this was happening to him right now. He's scared to death that some of the people within his military would literally use this time, even his political opponents. Like, you need to understand, people might do this because this is an opportunity to take charge of Egypt. So if there's a person who's like, I want to be the pharaoh of Egypt, even if he's like, has no Islamic sentiment, he would move the pieces to oust Sisi so he can become in the helm of this country. So Sisi right now in a very precarious position, and the Egyptian people, and definitely the sons of the Egyptian people in the army, and the air force, and the navy, and the police, are fuming and boiling to the slaughter that's been happening for 15 months in their border. I mean, you need to understand, Egypt could just like open the border, get the Gazans in, they'll save them. At least actually the civilians, the women, the children, right? You don't have to let everybody in, and you don't need to let them in for forever. You can just bring them in, make a big camp like Turkey did, give them some nice, like whatever it is. I'm just saying basically because I understand what this Egyptian regime is. But people are boiling because even the human decency of just protecting women and children and elderly and sick people is prevented by blocking the crossing between Gaza and Egypt, which is definitely a huge betrayal that the Muslims of Egypt, first and foremost, will never, ever, ever forget from this tyrant, ever, basically.
And you're right. I mean, Sisi is like panicking because he made a statement right after the Syrian revolution.
Yeah.
He's actually speaking to a bunch of journalists and military officers, and he said, "My hands are not stained by anyone's blood."
You can show it if you want.
حاجتين أنا ما عملتهمش بفضل الله سبحانه وتعالى. إيدي لا اتعصت دم حد ولا إيدي خدت مال حد. فربنا يحفظها طول ما المصريين على قلب رجل واحد وإيد واحدة، هم مع جيشهم مع شرطتهم، ما حدش قادر يعمل حاجة.
My hands have not been stained with anyone's blood, nor have I stolen anyone's money. Is he next? I know you said there's a chance, but how likely do you think this is going to happen? That would someone go and take over the country?
A security perspective, anybody would say, look, Egypt in a very, very high risk of a coup, without doubt. Without doubt. Any security analyst in the world, basically, looking at what's happening from a geopolitical regional perspective and understanding the political power dynamics of Egypt, understanding the society, understanding this political structure and the military security apparatus in Egypt, knows that this is right now is a very, very high risk time for this regime, without a doubt.
So my question about like a coup before we go on to the next topic here, because there's a lot of things happening, is Egypt is a very strategic country, right? It's bordering with what they call Israel, or what now where it's bordering the Gaza right now.
Yeah.
So Egypt borders Gaza. Egypt has the Suez Canal, which is strategic for global shipping. Now, if there even is a coup or a revolution, will it really be to the benefit of the people? Because it's, would global power just allow things to happen? Because a lot of things really are hinging on, like things not going too crazy in Egypt.
Look, the global powers don't have to be involved in a coup. A coup could be totally independent from the inside. And this is what scares the global powers. Egypt it's not about basically what Egypt borders. Definitely Egypt borders important, countries that, would impact regional and global issues like Palestine and like Sudan and Libya and so forth, and others. But and others, by the way. But and also the Suez Canal, which is super important for world trade. But don't forget, Egypt has 110 million people. You need to understand that's like the depth of the Arab world. Really, it's one of them. It is the main country within the Arab world. I mean, Syria is only like 25-30 million people. Saudi Arabia is like 27 million, 30 million people. And these are the bigger weights. Really, Egypt is the center of the Arab world. If that shifts, that's like more of like it's a tsunami, really, within the regional political theater. So definitely, if something happens and Egypt basically breaks down or something goes uncontrollable, things will go, real loose.
One thing you mentioned that Sisi does not want he's doing something evil by not letting the Palestinians, at least the civilians, into Egypt and to so they can survive, and then later on they can resettle and go back. Perhaps I've seen some people post about this, some outlets and stuff, saying that the fear is that if people go into Egypt, then Israel can use that as a precursor to say, okay, well, there is terrorist activities happening here. We have to secure our border by now moving in, creating a buffer zone. And now Egypt is worried about, even more confrontation. Is this something that is a legitimate concern, or is just these guys have just fully just sold out the Palestinians?
Oh, look, selling out, this is a long time ago. There's no discussion about basically the Egyptian governments selling out the Palestinians. This is part of the game. At the end of the day, The Egyptian regime since 1952 with Abdel Nasser is an American agent. Abdel Nasser was a CIA agent, and this is there's many books now about it and many articles. This is known. People might always say, "Oh, this agent," but this is how it works. This is how the world works. The third world was colonialized. The Nasser regime was an American agent regime, and who came after Abdel Nasser, right? Sadat and Mubarak, and after Mubarak the Sisi. It's the same military, council or whatever, brethren, whatever you want to call them. What the Egyptians should have been doing if they were not selling the Palestinians is to annex Gaza and make it part of Egypt. That's what they should. That's what they should do. I mean, it's Palestinian land. Even from a United Nations perspective, the Gazans could elect that we want to be part of Egypt, and then Gaza gets to become part of Egypt. This is the least they could do. The least. It's not what they should do, but this is the least they could do and should do. The least. Selling the Palestinians is, you can see they're blocking aid, they're blocking food, they're blocking medicine. They're letting these 2 million people get destroyed by Israel. And this is, nobody should ask, is the Egyptians have betrayed the Palestinians. This is committing genocide alongside the Israelis. The Egyptian regime is actually committing genocide with the Israelis against the Palestinians. Forget about they're committing genocide.
We spoke about Gaza. Now going to the West Bank, because many people don't know what's happening in the West Bank. There's been a lot of killings of Palestinians happening from the Palestinian Authority and historically from Israel. One of the victims was a young journalist, right? Shada Sabbagh, where she was taking her nieces and nephews out for food and then for candies and snacks, and then she just got sniped in the head. Court mentioned that this is Palestinians killing Palestinians. Is this a civil war? What's going on in the West Bank?
Oh, definitely it's not a civil war. Like this is the Palestinian Authority, literally, and Munazamat al-Tahrir, the PLO, is a fully subservient to the Israelis. Every Palestinian knows that. There's nothing new here. I'm not speculating. The Palestinian Authority is under the mercy and the full influence of the Israelis. And the leadership, like Mahmoud Abbas, they don't hide this stuff. They work for the Israelis. The Israelis have the money. The Israelis basically control the air, land, and sea. The Israelis have, made the West Bank into little pieces or cantons, and they control the whole thing. So they control everything about the PLO, and sadly they are complicit in the crimes. So they're torturing Palestinians. They're killing Palestinians. They're killing Palestinian children and women. They literally sniped children and women in the middle of the day. So these regimes in the Muslim world, like the Egyptian government and the Palestinian Authority, their role is one role. They have one role, one task: to suppress and subjugate the Muslim populations. That's really it. I mean, the foundation of Israel in the first place by Britain in 1948 was to create, again, constant wars and constant security tensions in the area. You see, I'm saying Muslims and Christians and Jews for the last 1,400 years, they lived in that land. Different ratios during different times. The Jewish population lived their golden age within the Muslim world. Why didn't all this stuff happen before? So now the Zionism politicized the issue, backed by the Western powers, specifically Britain and France, specifically Britain really, to create constant tension and constant wars. Because, see, when you have constant wars and tension, there's no progress. See, progress necessitates peace and unification. This is how power and strength gets built by any. That's why the Europeans are trying to do a European Union. That's why the United States became a union. That's why Canada is a union. At the end of the day, with peace and cooperation and integration, there's power. And the opposite is true. With instability, wars, right, division and disagreement and tension, you create weakness. So there's an intentional. This is what makes me laugh sometimes is some of the American laymen and the Western laymen. Like, look at the third world. They're backward. They're barbaric. They're always in constant fighting, bro. Your governments have built that in since World War I. And since even basically the 1700s and the 1800s. this is how the Muslim world now is sadly it's been colonialized since the late 1700s. Most of it, some even before, but last couple of hundred years been Western colonization from Indonesia to Morocco, by the British, by the French, by the Dutch, by the Italians, by the Portuguese, so by the Russians, and then later on by the Americans, right? So the Muslim world is occupied for the last couple hundred years, and Muslims first and foremost, they need to understand it, and also the Westerners need to understand that. They need to understand what their governments have invested in. You see what I'm saying? Because if you don't like the world and how it is with all the instabilities and wars and famines and crises and genocides that's happening as a Westerner, well, you should go and read history a little bit and account your governments.
This is a very good point, especially with what's going on with Twitter and the Islamophobia and different things and selective understanding of history. Now, recently there was news out in Beijing where Hamas and Fatah and different groups came to some sort of agreement on working together from a governing perspective, unifying. And then now we have the Palestinian Authority just sniping people and saying that there are people fighting against us and other factions, us and them. I mean, how does that, how do we understand this full picture? Are people trying to work together? Are they going back on their agreements? What's going on? What's really happening with the Palestinian Authority?
Look, the Palestinian Authority, we need to watch a little bit more to understand exactly what's the strategic thing. Definitely the quick analysis is that right now Netanyahu is trying to fight all these wars. And him perpetuating things and keeping things unstable is in his interest. So he's going to continue to kill. He's killing people, he's murdering people, he's destroying hospitals and the medical teams, literally sick patients, women and children in Gaza. Why is he doing that? For what? He wants to continue to inflame the region. There's no other explanation. He wants to continue to perpetuate the wars. So he gave also basically, a signal to the Palestinian Authority to also create, what happened in the West Bank is literally has only one definition in any type of, political/security analysis. It is to instigate the populace for an uprising. When somebody goes and gives orders for their snipers to go just literally aim at women and children and kill them in cold blood in the middle of the day. There's only one purpose for that, to instigate a reaction. So who wants to create tension? There's only one person who has interest in that. It's not the United States. It's Netanyahu. Which takes us back to basically what Netanyahu. That's why Netanyahu was sending these. That's why Trump was sending this message to Netanyahu. Now I don't know what Trump is going to do at the end of the day. He bluffs a lot and he speaks a lot. It's not as if basically anybody should trust him, but what I'm trying to say, what's happening in the West Bank is basically creating enough pressure to deliver a reaction. And people, again, because sometimes, sadly, most of the laymen or most of the regular people would think emotionally about these situations. But sadly, there's always an actor behind the scenes that's operating, that's making these moves. And we need to understand, it's not like as if basically one personnel from the Palestinian Authority decided he's going to go and snipe a woman and a child. No. This does not happen. There's an order from top to bottom. There's a hierarchy of decision making, and this is not like basically you slipped over a banana peel. This is killing multiple women and children in cold blood, not one time, multiple times. So, subhanallah, may Allah protect us.
Ameen. To what end though? I know America might have a different interest, but what, some viewers may be still trying to understand what the hell does this maniac want? Does he want to just have the people uprise and then slaughter them, to kick them into Jordan, from the West Bank to Jordan, and from Gaza to Sinai Peninsula?
Yeah,
what is he?
definitely.
Does he want?
Look, they're open about it. It's not as if it's hidden. This Israeli cabinet with the leadership of Netanyahu has one goal. They want Palestine fully for them. They don't want the Palestinian Arabs to be there. So they want the Gazans to go into Egypt and the Palestinians in the West Bank to go into Jordan. Now they might have an alternative to go to Syria, right? The people in the West Bank, they can deliver them to Syria because Jordan, it'll have a demographic instability. And they don't want to do that either. They want to, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's ethnic cleansing and transfer. They want like literally a transfer of ethnic cleansing and transfer of people from this geography. They just want to own the geography. What are you going to do? Like, you know, like the Israelis said, look, we want this place and we don't want these people. So just take them somehow and put them somewhere else.
Well, the same way they got in the first place. I kind of want to understand this quote and see your thoughts, Sheikh. Former Major General Yitzhak Brick from the IDF has recently pointed out that his analysis, Israel has been failing on every single front. He said that they weren't able to defeat Hamas. They go to Jabalia, they go to Khan Yunis five times, and coming back again and again, and the resistance coming back, and so morale is going low in the IDF. We cannot defeat the Houthis, Iran. On top of this, he mentions Hamas getting more supplies from tunnels going from the Sinai Peninsula under the Philadelphia corridor. So is Israel losing this war?
Look, at the end of the day, Israel as a state and the national interest of Israel, the Netanyahu does, like his personal interest is above it. So is Israel paying a heavy price from an economic, social, political, military, perspective? Yeah, definitely, and security. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the current Israeli establishment, led by Netanyahu, they believe this is a good price. I mean, they know they're not gonna get any of the hostages because what they're doing will end up basically have a retaliation by killing them.
And they don't even care about the
No,
hostages.
they don't care.
Yeah.
If they cared about Israeli lives, they would have just basically exchanged hostages and done. But Netanyahu would basically be in big trouble if things settle down in the Middle East. That's from one perspective. The second thing is that the Israelis, they want to eliminate the Iranian threats. So they want to keep things perpetuating. So as you can see, in addition to the ethnic transfer within ethnic cleansing within the West Bank and Gaza, they also want to smash the Iranian nuclear program. But they need the United States to help them there. And the United States allowed Iran to get so far, so Iran can become a threat to Israelis, so they can keep Israelis contained. Now again, this is hard to swallow for some people. The Americans could have blown up the nuclear project way before, at the beginning of it. Look at the Israelis, for example, they blew up the Iraqi nuclear program. But why? Because they got the green light from the United States, and the United States gave them cover and everything else and so forth, and maybe Iraq is closer, so they need a little bit more support from a fueling perspective, and maybe like Iran has more advanced radars than at that time. Without doing too much comparison, but the Israelis need the United States support to blow up the Iranian nuclear program, and the United States are not giving them that. Now, maybe Trump might do that to create a deal. So Trump was talking about that. There's now talks in the United States to have a strike and destroy the nuclear program in Iran. This could be a deal. This could be like, let's solve this. And at the end of the day, as we say, Trump is a businessman. He's going to go to negotiate. Like he makes himself like big macho and so forth. But he's all about making deals. And so he might stop this whole thing by saying, look, we'll strike the nuclear program, and then you need to make peace and normalize with Saudi Arabia, and then now the question is, okay, what is the exit for what is the solution for the Palestinians? Like, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, and it's take and give. So how are they going to set it up? I still don't know right now, but we need to watch what is each side going to be offering. We keep watching this closely.
Speaking of Iran, on the news recently, I think yesterday, they made like a big announcement that they're saying, we're going to unveil something amazing, and we'll just watch in a few hours. Most people were like, nothing happened. The only thing I could find was that they unveiled some new weapon system, defense system, that they did like a war game to show off its capability, and they did it near one of the nuclear facilities. So is this something like they're sending a message that like, hey, you try, but we can fight back, or like what's going on here?
Wallahi, look, at the end of the day, as I said, like, it doesn't really matter. Israel cannot do this alone.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's all about the United States. It's an American decision. If the Americans decide to use this card to negotiate with Netanyahu and the Israeli government, it will happen. You see what I'm saying? And the Iranians will lose a lot. I mean, they already lost basically in Syria and with Hezbollah in Lebanon. They understand. That's why they retreat, because they are aligned within the framework of the United States and the region. They're not there to face off the United States. It's a lie. This whole the great Satan. This is all propaganda. And people, the loss of the Iranian, fans are gonna hate me for. Oh, it's fine. It's like this is the reality. You don't like it, you can cry about it. It's okay. Politics is politics, and people need to grow up. So I don't care basically what the Iranians are doing, but it is a signal. It's a signal that the Israelis, they do something unilaterally, for example. Because some of the security analysts and military analysts were saying, since now the Israelis have, dampened all the and killed all the defense mechanism in Syria, the need for the United States might be a little bit less, because the F-35s can fly, and they can get refueled over Syria, because Syria, it's safe now to have the refueling mechanism. The F-35 can go there because neither the S-300 defense system that Iran has can catch them. The issue is now fueling. You see what I'm saying? So if the Israelis decide to go unilateral without the United States and take the risk, the Iranians are telling them, well, you'll be hurt if you do that alone. And that means basically the Iranians and the United States are aligned. Again, because the Iranians can't do much. Like if the United States decide to go smack Iran and destroy its nuclear program, nothing that Iran can do right now can defend them.
Jazakallah khair, that really helps paint the picture. And for the viewers, we're going to do some more episodes where we'll unpack these concepts a bit more deeper as well as time proceeds forward, because a lot of things are going to be happening close to election time. But I wanted to talk about Lebanon. We have the ceasefire. I think many people forgot that the ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel was temporary. It was actually a 60-day ceasefire, and Israel's been doing multiple violations. And Naim Qassem, who was Naim Qassem, right? Qassem said.
Qassem.
Yeah, Naim Qassem, who was the leader of Hezbollah, said made some statements. That he said that after no one knows what Hezbollah will do after 60 days will pass, but when we decide to do something, you will see it directly. Without doing too much political analysis, Sheikh, what does this mean? What's going to happen?
Yeah, sadly, it's a statement of weakness. Like the amount of violations that the Israelis have done, just like, again, it's a statement of weakness. Like, if you had the strength, you would have done something. Okay, and if they did have the strength, let's say, and they're not doing it, then they're not doing it because there's a red line set by Iran. Which is, again, as we said, it's aligned with the United States. The United States does not want the perpetuation of war. Again, Netanyahu is trying to instigate, and perpetuate the tension. The United States wants to try to calm things down.
Even like the whole conflict, Israel has been trying to agitate Hezbollah and bring them in and get something and instigate them, they were not taking the bait until Israel tried to go in.
Exactly.
Yep.
Which they've done before, and they lost a lot. I mean, they lost the whole leadership hierarchy is gone. Not a single person is still left. The Israelis assassinated everybody. They did the pager operation. They bombed, huge parts of Lebanon, especially the Shia areas and infrastructure, and Hezbollah couldn't do much.
Well, that's true, Sheikh. Israel wasn't able to advance much as compared to what happened in 2006. And,
it's true.
And as you mentioned before, like it showed that level of weakness from Israel's side. Now, the question was when Hezbollah was in a position of, at that point, they had some actually position of a little bit of strength because they were still, after all this, they were preventing Israel's advance. I mean, why did they sign the ceasefire in the first place? Why threaten now? Like, I'm trying to understand, like, if they're going to make threats now, why did they even enter the ceasefire in the first place?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying it's like a bluff. It's a position of weakness, right? Like, I mean, Hezbollah, when they agreed to the peace treaty in the first place, that means basically they are weak. Because Nasrallah himself, as we said earlier, he said we will never stop until Gaza gets a peace treaty, right? But they stopped even though Gaza nothing happened. So why did you get into the war in the first place?
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? So it's that's what I'm saying. Hezbollah not just miscalculated. Hezbollah relies blindly on Iran for ideological reasons. We described that before. It's called Wilayatul Faqih. Wilayatul Faqih, or the governance of the scholar idea. This is an idea that was brought by Khomeini in the Iranian Revolution of '79, and before that, definitely the concept was before that. But it was introduced to the world, to the Islamic world back then, and they believe in it. They believe that this top scholar who's leading the Iranian nation represents the Shia, and it's kind of really almost like set by God. It's set by God. It's it's infallible. Well, at least not set by God, but at least they need to obey that leader. They're pretty ideological people from a religious perspective. So they'll do things that are totally, nonsensical, that jeopardizes their security, the security of Lebanon, the lives of their own, people and so forth, due to this ideology. See, when the human being uses emotions and believes in things that are mythical, this is what happens. What are you gonna do if you believe if you believe you can fly and you jump off of a building? What's gonna happen to you?
You're just gonna fall, yeah.
You're gonna fall, break your legs, and so that's
lucky.
But you see what I'm saying? But this is a problem. This is a problem.
Sheikh, so I guess for today, there's a few things that we want to watch, right? We want to watch what's happening in the West Bank, see what's really continuing, what's going to be happening. Iran, what's going to happen with Israel, especially now. We'll do a special on the elections. But we mentioned Egypt, and I want to ask a final question, a practical question on Egypt. I want to end on a practical note. I've been there before, and I've seen, after the coup, I've seen a pretty interesting environment where there were snipers on rooftops, there were tanks on the streets, there were soldiers pointing their rifles at the people just walking and going shopping. So, and we, Egypt ended up with Sisi. So after all of this effort in the Arab Spring, some people might feel that, they ended up even worse off after Mubarak. So would you recommend are 3 things? Let's say that there is a revolution or people want to speak out against injustice in Egypt. What are 3 things that can be done differently, or a couple of things that can help the Egyptians from falling into the same trap again?
Well, look, I mean, the biggest mistake is that the Egyptians, the Egyptian revolutionaries, right? And within the Arab Spring that happened in 2010, end of 2010, the Ikhwan al-Muslimin, the Muslim Brotherhood, made a secret deal, or I guess it's very open these days, with the Supreme Council, with the Supreme Military Council, if you remember. And the Supreme Military Council told them, look, we'll have free elections, we'll let you guys go through an election. If you guys win, you win. But get people off of the streets and off of the, and so forth, and you guys can rule. So this is how they were tricked. I hope the Egyptians today understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا لِلَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا فَتَمَسَّكُمُ النَّارِ. Do not rely upon the oppressors, otherwise you'll get burnt, right? So so this is what's happening. This is what happened. If the Egyptian people go on the streets, they should never leave the streets ever, and they should call for the military hierarchy to defect if they are going to be told or ordered to kill civilians. No Egyptian soldier ever or police should shoot any Egyptian citizen, right? So that should be the call. The call is basically, and that's how you would basically bring down the whole regime. You know what I'm saying? So this is how it should be. The Egyptian military should not stand by watching their own brothers and sisters and cousins and sons and parents get shot by other people. So. And this is what happened in Syria. So the military, part of it defected, so the whole regime went down. So the only thing I would say, if people go in the street, then never leave the streets and don't listen to the Muslim Brotherhood again. But they do need a political leadership. And so that's where basically the trick is like, if people go on the ground and start marching and uprising, who's going to be the political next? What's next post-revolution? Let's say the revolution succeeds. What's next?
Yeah, because the hardest part is not toppling a leader, right? The hardest part is, what's next?
Yeah. So that's why people need to be the people need to be clear that they need. It's not about just basically toppling a regime. It's like, what are you going to build after? Something that creates an independent Egypt. that is free for all Egyptians, that implements justice and implements Islam and so forth, is what they want. You see what I'm saying?
Well, Sheikh, Jazakumullah khairan. This is a lot of things for us to understand, and from Donald Trump to Lebanon, Egypt, Gaza, West Bank, and so many things to keep observing. And for those who are watching and all the viewers, subscribe, as we always say. Comment, share your thoughts. And there's a lot of requests that we've seen in the comments. We are getting to them one by one. Keep giving us those requests. There's a queue, there's a lineup. So inshallah ta'ala, look forward to our next episode on i3 Pulse, closer to the election day. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.